I'm Kriss Thakrar. I'm a consultant at MIDiA Research, and just a bit of context with what we do. We do a lot of entertainment, intelligence, analytics, and insight, mostly in the music industry, but we have complete coverage across gaming, video, sports, and social as well. So we can really get into the depths of how music sits in the context of the wider entertainment industry, and the same with all the other verticals as well. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the future of the music industry in the creator economy. And essentially, this is a little bit of a bite-sized keynote, as we've only got 10 to 15 minutes. So I'll try and cover as much as I can within that time and do it all justice. But essentially, the things I'm going to be talking about today is how music is as with all the other entertainment verticals, there's this big competition for attention, particularly with the growth in entertainment time spent because of COVID and the lockdowns. Now the world is coming back to normal. That's starting to contract, and it's making this battle for attention even feistier, let's say. And on top of that, we've got a lot of capital flowing into the music industry in a lot of different ways. I'm sure a lot of people have seen all the big headlines about sort of this catalog's been bought for millions and such, but there's a new wave of capital investment coming in the creator space that's really exciting. And after that, we've got this whole range of long-tail creators. There's absolutely millions of them, and what they're doing and the tools they're using to do what they do is going to completely reshape and redefine what the music industry is. So, here's quite a complex graph, but it's one which I want to spend quite a bit of time just digging into, because we've been tracking the amount of time spent on entertainment, as you can see across all of these different verticals, including chilling, because we can't forget that. And after the lockdown, there was a significant growth in the amount of time spent on entertainment. So you can see the difference between Q2 2020 and Q4 2019, how entertainment grew over those 6 months. And then in the following 6 months, in the past 6 months this year, from the beginning of 2021 to Q2 2021, almost half of that time had gone. So that's 42% of that time just essentially is not there anymore to be spending on entertainment. And so all of these verticals are essentially in competition to compete for what is a declining amount of attention. And some of the big winners from that initial burst, like audio, ended up declining a fair bit, so it's bounced back down. Music has declined a little bit more, but as a process of the others declining more than music, it has grown its share. But the biggest story here is, even though attention is declining, social is the only channel that is actually growing within that decline. And so that's quite an exceptional feat for the social platforms, and it really underlines the context of this creator economy and the behavior of people using social platforms, what they're doing on there, and why it is grabbing so much of the attention of consumers today. And so with the growth of social, obviously we can't ignore TikTok, and the context of TikTok's growth happening in the sort of, let's say, the stagnation of growth in streaming, and the continued growth of YouTube, which as a music platform is far more interactive and far more sort of community and creator sort of focus than the likes of Spotify. And when we're tracking the numbers of creators with our creator economy model, we can actually see that the amount of people uploading onto platforms like YouTube, so uploading music onto YouTube, SoundCloud, and just sort of sharing sounds and songs, is 5 times the size of those who are actually distributing their music officially through to Spotify, through aggregators like DistroKid or CD Baby. And so a lot of the growth is surrounding the places where young, well, typically young, but not necessarily always young, but a younger generation of creators who are uploading, sharing, and in that process, collaborating, exploring, and developing new ways of consuming music. And so we've been doing projects at MIDiA in the consulting division where we're actually interviewing artists and talking to them about what are they doing, what do they see success as, what are their sort of goals and ambitions. And we've heard quite a few times actually from artists we've spoken to that the amount of effort it's to complete a track, so write it, produce it, and mix and master it, and get it to a point where it's appropriate to release on a platform like Spotify. As an independent artist, the amount of effort that goes into it, they're not getting the return. They're not seeing the growth in their audience. They're not seeing the engagement. They're not seeing the financial return, especially for we consider the amount of marketing that some independent artists put into their work. And it's quite a demoralizing experience for a lot of them. And instead, these are people who are creative, like inherently, and they're not going to simply just walk away from music. And so what we're hearing from them is that they're moving towards more of a music creator as a content creator for their activities. So they're going through channels like TikTok and Shorts because, one, they can just put out content that is just, like beats, just sounds, just hooks, ideas, as opposed to a finished track. And because these platforms are growing and because they're centered around engagement, they're getting a lot more back than for what they're putting into it. So when you think about it, less work for more return, it makes sense to be going down the route of TikTok and Shorts as instead of completing your music and going on Spotify. And when we look at our independent artist survey, before we get into that is this dynamic is really underlying what we think is the next phase of growth of the music industry, which is essentially we've seen investment come into labels and streaming in the past, publishers right now, and this investment changes the industry. Whereas with this amount of investment coming into the creator economy, not just through music, but creation in general, it is setting up independent creators to be a central force in the music industry. And we've got a whole range and whole suite of tools and companies that embody this creative phase. And, there's a lot of, there's some really strong valuations with, I believe District, it was valued at over $1 billion a month or two ago on that distribution side. And yeah, we've got all the marketing and sort of funding here as well. But we think the really exciting space is this collaboration, production, and sounds area, where you've got companies like Splice and Native Instruments getting investment from Francisco Partners to merge with Isotope. This part of the music industry is really vibrant. It's set for even more investment, even more growth. And it's the innovations that are happening here that we're seeing companies like Landar start taking on the rest of the value chain, start going from just being a mastering platform to going into distribution, sounds, instruments, promotion, into an all-in-one subscription package. And so with all this investment, it's not really much surprise to see the decline in the global recorded music market share of the majors in place of non-majors, of which the independent artist direct segment is the fastest growing and is set to continue to grow and start eating away at more share in the music industry. And so we really want to get in today. There's so much we could go into with this, but I really want to get into this next generation of creators, how they're defining success, what kind of platforms they're using and the tools, and what they're getting out of these new tools and why it's so radically different and what it means for the rest of the music industry. And so when we looked at our independent artist survey, we basically backed up a lot of what we were hearing from the artists, which was, it's not about 1 million streams. It's not about getting a big major deal. It's not about becoming this massive superstar. For the majority of them, They just want attention. They just want engagement. They want respect and recognition. They want to build their fan base. They want to connect with it. And, a lot of these people just get into music because they love it. They enjoy making music because it's one of the greatest joys I think a lot of people can have if you can do it. And so that's what their focus is. And a lot of traditional platforms may not necessarily be giving that to them. New modern platforms are. And so we wanted to look at what this next generation was doing. And we were finding that, okay, where are Gen Z as a share of the total platform user base, where are they centered? And we can see here the most prevalent platforms that they're on. I mean, Discord is there right at the top. You've got Snapchat and TikTok, which is no surprise. And then Twitch and SoundCloud as well. And, there's a mix of collaborative social tools. Even Snapchat has Voisey as a music collaboration platform. Twitch and Discord coming from the gaming side. There's a lot of influence there. And then SoundCloud, out of all of the places to listen to music, probably has the strongest emphasis on community. And so, there's this mix of community and short form content that is embodied with a lot of these platforms. So we wanted to dive a bit deeper, and apologies for the formatting because I had to move this onto sheets. But essentially, we were looking at the creative behaviors of these platforms and what do they look like? What do the users of these platforms do from a creative standpoint? And we can see all consumers there in the middle. As you expect, not all consumers are the most creative people. You've got the Snapchat and TikTok users pretty much the same right there. But then you've got Discord and Twitch, which is really interesting how, SoundCloud is understandable. It's a music creator platform. It's where people upload music they've created. So you would expect them to be creative. But when you look at Twitch and Discord, you've got these gamer community platforms, which have just as much musical creator activity as a music creation platform. And we think that's super interesting and really wanted to dive deeper into how gaming and how gamers in particular are just really creative people, how, those who actually live stream their gameplay, a really massive amount compared to the general public are uploading their music to platforms. They're sharing it. And this isn't releasing it to Spotify. This is just sharing music they're making. And it's the same with all the other gaming segments. They massively over-index for those who are making music and putting it up there. And so what does all of this mean? It means that we've got the future creators essentially using tools and being influenced by things that former creators never did. Former creators used to go into the studio and the rehearsal room, make a record and put it out there. Now this next generation of creators are interacting with each other, they're collaborating with each other, and they're using tools that don't necessarily look like music production tools. They look more like social media tools. They look more like gaming tools. And it's a lot more about the community participation, and it's about the process of creation more than the output. And because of that, just like a lot of these platforms have brought typically complex and inaccessible processes into the mainstream, these new tools are making music making mainstream with the broader consumer base. And with that, we're starting to see a blur between what is a creator and what is a consumer, because these platforms are inherently creative and they're serving a generation that is inherently creative as well. And that's where we see this evolution of UGC and why it's super exciting. And this might seem a bit out of place, but I wanted to put it in here just because we did a project on emerging markets and we spoke to people in the music industries across China, South Africa, Nigeria, and the Middle East and India. And you can get this report as well on our website. And it was a really interesting project because we kept hearing about independent creators. We kept hearing about creators being digital first. We kept hearing about creators building their brands and really building their own sounds, because streaming had come in. It had exposed them to all of this music. They're getting onto digital platforms. And there's this new wave of global creators where it doesn't matter where you are in the world. I mean, there was a a kid in Jordan who was just a teenager putting up a fun like sort of TikTok song of him just singing a cute little melody, and it goes viral, and people all across the world now can participate in this new creator dynamic. And so just to conclude, we've got streaming changing what the music industry is. Over the past decade, it's completely transformed the industry to one that was in perpetual decline because of piracy into something that could grow. But this long tail of creators weren't necessarily benefiting from it because they want attention and they want respect and recognition and not passive consumption. And so with this new wave of investment into the creator economy, it's really bringing out this new generation of creators. It's giving them more opportunities. It's giving them more access to tools that is allowing people all across the world to be able to participate and engage with music in so many different ways. And we think that this long tail of creators across the world is one of the most exciting parts of the music industry and is poised to position the music industry for future growth over the next few years. So yeah, thank you very much. I've been Kriss, and it's been a pleasure. So thank you very much for listening.